Hi there folks, welcome back to the euro-nymph fishing channel, and at the very least happy Christmas, if not happy New Year. I hope Santa Claus delivered all the things you really wanted and needed for this Christmas and you got to spend lots of time with your family. One of the things that Santa Claus has delivered to me this Christmas was a really healthy dose of Christmas flu, so I apologise if I sound like I'm talking out of my nose during this video, but I basically am. I'm living on drugs at the moment. It's pretty brutal. But I want to crack straight on. This is the third in the 5-part series about my favourite grayling flies, the 5 different grayling flies that will always come with me whether I'm going fishing on my own or whether I'm taking clients out. These are the flies that I will always have with me during a session, and you can already see from what I've got in the vise here that this is going to be a pretty controversial one. So the squirmy worm, I remember seeing this fly, which is probably kind of the original version, the most recognised version of the squirmy, probably 4 or 5 years ago. I know the competition guys have been using them longer, but this is the fully mill one, and I just thought, wow, that is going to absolutely slay. That's going to catch fish everywhere, and sure enough, it has done. It's caught fish everywhere. It's caught wild fish, stock fish. It's caught absolutely everything. There's no denying it. Whether you like squirmies or not, it is an effective fly, and it is part of the 21st century fly fisher's armoury. Now, what I don't want to do is turn the comment section of this video into a squirmy versus no squirmy war, so please leave that one alone. This is more about how I've adapted the original version of the squirmy and turn it into a fly that I'm slightly more confident with. As I say, when I first saw this, I thought, yeah, this is going to be brilliant, this is going to catch a lot of fish, but I also remember first seeing it and thinking, I can already see some things in there that I'm not happy about with that fly. So I'll just go through those very quickly. The first one is just the sheer length of it. Now, it's a big old fly, that is. That's probably 3.5 inches, 3 inches in length, which is about right for a red worm. That's just how big they are naturally. And obviously that length provides loads of movement and stuff. My first thought, though, was, particularly with perhaps fish that aren't quite so big, is if I've got a take at this end, you see that's quite stretchy. If I've got a take at this end, that fish has got to work a long way up to get to the sharp bit. And obviously if it doesn't get to the sharp bit, we don't catch the fish. So my first instinct on this was that end is just too far away from the hook. And actually I've fished this quite a lot, and I've found that quite often I'll get the indicator will stop and I'll strike and I'll get a very soft resistance that initially I was trying to convince myself was weed, but actually over the course of using the squirmy, I do think actually when you get that very soft resistance, I think a fish has grabbed the other end of it and you haven't hit the tape because it's nowhere near the hook. So that's always been a problem. That's probably the biggest one that's bugged me the most. The second issue I've had with it is it's very prone to doing that, getting wrapped around its own hook point. Sometimes it'll even actually get stuck on the hook point. I bet you I can't do that now. But the amount of times I brought it in and it's either been wrapped around like that or stuck on the hook point, it's going to be very, very hard to hook a fish with that fly as it is there. So that's always been a real issue for me. The third issue, and this is a bit more geeky, those of you who've watched the first 2 fly tying vlogs will probably get where I'm coming from with this one at the very least. I know it's something I've talked about. I'm very reluctant when I'm tying nymphs to tie them too bulky. I don't like tying nymphs that are thick and heavy because we want these things to sink quickly. That's the whole idea. And that is a really bulky fly. Bulky flies will get washed down a river faster just because they get extra surface area. It's not going to sink straight down. It's going to get pushed by the water flow quite quickly. The other problem I have with that, and this is a real geeky one, I'm just going to lean backwards and grab a piece of squirmy. That's the funky fly tying. I can't remember what colour it is. There's loads of different materials. I've tried this with most of them, and it's been the same result with almost all of them. So I'm just going to grab a cup of water there. I'm just going to drop that in. And you can see, squirmy worm material floats really well. It's very, very buoyant. You can see that there. There's a little kink underwater there, but the vast majority of that is on or above the surface. And that for me is a real problem. So basically what we're doing is we're taking a very heavy bead and a nice fine wire hook and then coating it in something that floats, which means again that we're not going to get the maximum kind of sinking, the sinkability, whatever that word is. We're not going to get the most out of this because we've just coated something that sinks really quickly in something that floats really well. So that's an issue for me as well. So I looked at this and said, right, I need to find a way of making sure the ends of the squirmy are close to the hook. I need to find a way to try and avoid it getting hook wrapped like that. And more than anything, I need to try and find a way of avoiding using quite so much material on the hook shank because that's stopping this fly sinking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I tie my version of the squirmy worm. So we're going to start, pop that hook in the vise. What I've got there is a size 12 full and mill super heavyweight grub, barbless, great hook, really sharp, very heavy. Last for ages, really happy with those, and that's a size 12. And on there I've got a bright orange fluorescent bead, and that's 3mm tungsten. To be honest, you can use pretty much anything with these. It's a really flexible fly, but I'll talk about that more as we go on. For thread, I'm using Glow Bright number 4. I'm actually using a floss rather than a thread, and the reason for that is that the squirmy worm material is very, very prone to getting cut, particularly by thinner threads. So you want something a little bit thicker. The floss is nice and thick and it lies nice and flat, so it's not as prone to cutting as the threads are. So I'm going to get that bead just over the top of the pointer hook like that, and I'm just going to tie on with the Glow Bright material. And you'll notice as I start tying here, I've got some new fly tying materials. Sorry, some new fly tying tools. IB bought me the Loon fly tying toolkit for Christmas, which was really nice. So I'm going to use some new tools. The first time I've used them, so I'm probably going to make a couple more errors than I usually would. But this is still a super quick fly. And all I'm going to do here, I'm just going to build up a little bit of bulk here, and that's got 2 rolls. Firstly, that's what the bead's going to sit against. I'm going to build another little bit of bulk up here as well. There we go, that'll do us. And if you look very closely, in between those 2 bits of bulk there's a gap there. And that is where we're going to tie in our squirmy worm. Now I've cut a length of about 3 inches, so it's probably about the same length as the tail of a normal squirmy worm. And I find with this stuff, I don't know which brand this is actually, I think this might be the funky stuff. But they're all pretty much the same. I find with this stuff there's always a shape to it, there's always a set to it, and you can see this one's got a bit of a kink there. And what I want to do in order to stop this from hook wrapping is I'm going to try and tie it in so that kink points up rather than down. If we tie it pointing down like that, that's going to hook wrap. If we tie it pointing up like that, it's going to resist it. And then all I'm going to do is one loose wrap, and you see I'm not even holding the bobbin holder anymore. One nice loose wrap just in that little nook that we made, and then a couple of wraps around it just to tie it down. That's super important that you don't make that one wrap too tight. So if you do, it'll cut the squirmy worm, and that's not what we want. So that's tied in there at that. So I need to pop in a little whip finish now. This is a super easy fly, by the way. This will take minutes once you've figured it out, and that's one of the things I like about it. One of the things I don't like about it is I don't like whip finishing Glow Bright, because it's has a terrible habit of snapping on me. There we go, so that'll do. It's not a great whip finish, but that'll do. Cut that off there and leave a little tag, because that's going to be sat underneath the bead anyway. And I'm going to push the bead down like that. And you can already kind of see where I'm going with this. So the next little bit of this fly is tying back on down here, nice and tight up against that bead so it can't move. We're going to make a little bulk up against the bead, make a little bulk a bit further down. I need to cut that tag off. Oh, I have not to cut the squirmy here. I've done that a couple of times in the past. That'll be absolutely fine. So you can see again, we've got the bulk up against the bead, and we've got the bulk where the bobbin sat. But just in there at the moment, there is another gap. And believe it or not, that's exactly where we're going to tie in that squirmy. So the squirmy is going to go over the top of the bead. It's a bit fiddly with all the lights and the camera tripod and stuff. Alright, so I'm looking at that. I feel like that might be too tight. So I'm going to try that one again. The tighter this is, the less time the fly will last. So I'm happy with that. Whip that one down. It's just slid around the shank a little bit, that one. It's not the end of the world. And we're ready for another whip finish. It's not a great whip finish, that one. Might just get away with it. Righty, and that as it is, let me just move that fly around a little bit, that'll pop it out of the vise, is pretty much my version of a squirmy woman. You can see the piece at the back there is sat well away from the bend of the hook. You can see there's still loads of movement in there. It's still got all the movement that you'd want from a squirmy. Try to keep it in shot. But there's no risk of that material getting around the bend of the hook. What's also done, by using a natural material and then putting that orange bead in the middle, I've actually created a little strike point there. So they're more likely, the fish in theory are more likely to head towards the middle of that fly and where the bend of the hook is, than to go nibbling on either end. We don't want them to be nibbling the ends on this, we want them to hone in on the middle of the fly. Obviously now what we've got to do is finish this fly, because it's going to be no good like that, so I'm going to just pop it out the vise for a second. I would usually just use the rotary on the vise, but I haven't got enough space because I've got lights underneath me. And we're at that point there. Now I'm going to be using Gulf Thin Man. I'm sure the UV resins have got the same property, but actually the Thin Man I've found doesn't affect the squirmy worm material. I have found that some of the glues, like Zap, just gasses that glue straight, or Zap just gasses the squirmy worm, straight away. It really erodes it. But this stuff doesn't seem as bad. I'm just going to go in with a bodkin, and I'm going to be really liberal with this. Really get stuck in with it. You want plenty on there, as much as possible to keep that fly together. Fill all those gaps, make sure that all of that thread is coated. And then we'll go in with the UV torch. We might even go for a little second coating on that one. Couple more seconds of that because it's not a great torch. Okay, we'll pop that back out the vise and we'll flip it back over. Get a bit more of the Thin Man on the bobbin, on the bodkin, sorry. And go back in here around where that whip finish is, because that's the weak point on this fly now, is the whip finish. And then we go with the torch again. And that, believe it or not folks, is my version of the squirmy. I'm just going to give that a little twist, just so we get a bit more of a view of it all. I know it's uglier than the original version. I know there's bits sticking out everywhere. But you can see just as I spin it, there's still loads of movement bouncing around. But it's got that hot spot that draws the fish in towards the point of the hook. It uses nowhere near the same amount of material. See, with that I can still tie another fly with a second piece of squirmy worm. It's a super fast, easy tie. It's a 2-minute tie. Sometimes these start to come apart after a few fish, but to be honest, once you started tying them properly, it takes so little time to get these done that I don't care if I have to retie another one, because it really is super quick. Sometimes even they'll start to come undone. If the squirmy snaps, I just take the bead off, take all the thread off, and just tie it again from there. I will say the one big problem I found with this style of squirmy has been line twist, and on the days when I know I'm going to use these a lot, I'll quite often put a little swivel just underneath my indicator or somewhere on the rig, a tiny little micro swivel, just to avoid the line twisting too much, because that can be a real issue. But you can see there, there's very little chance of that material getting caught in the bend of the hook, which is exactly what I wanted to do when I tied this fly. I've minimised the short takes, minimised the fly getting caught on the bend of the hook, or the material getting caught on the bend of the hook. And we've minimised the amount of material we've used as well, so it's going to sink a lot faster too. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it makes some sense. Please let me know if you give these a go yourself. I'd be really interested to hear how you get on. I'll link all the materials that I've used in the comment section below, so you can have a go at tying your own. And that really is it. As I say, please don't turn this into a squirmy versus no squirmy fight, because that one's been done to death by now. It's a great fly. It works really well, really versatile, lots of different colours. You catch everything on them. It's part of the 21st century fly ties armory. It's as simple as that. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And IB and I will see you guys again very, very soon for some more fly time. Take care, folks. Bye bye.